there's another project that is gaining steam right now called Enviro, and it's run on Unreal 5 engine actually. So it's like a game engine, and it makes super realistic environments. And actually, Unreal 5 now is being used by movie studios to build their sets, like The
I think,
Mandalorian
yeah. They use
show.
what they did was they used like real, it's like almost like called practical effects or whatever. So like the walls, instead of being green screen, are actual uh, the Unreal Engine is rendering the background, and then you
Mhm.
film it in camera rather than
Yeah.
filming in camera with green screen and then dropping in an image.
Yep.
So something like that, right?
Yeah.
So there's two engines, right? Unreal and Unity. These are the two that I've heard are the like main, you know, Apple and Orange of like, the Intel and the AMD of the that are driving graphic like gaming and now cinema.
Hmm.
So
So
how? Tell me about it.
this company, this project, Enviro, is using Unreal 5 to create um, basically like your own rooms, like portals, but everything's rendered in Unreal 5. And they have this integration already that they've just shown stills of. They don't have like a working demo yet, like Portals did, where you could go into the room and interact with stuff. Um, but they've been showing these pictures of different NFTs on the wall that you could use as like portraits. So
So the
the
NFTs right
developer,
now are inanimate, or semi, like mostly inanimate images on the wall. Like that's where they're
yeah,
kicking off.
yeah, that's like their
Okay.
original idea. But the rooms look so photorealistic because you can do this amazing thing with ray tracing and lighting and like all the different effects to make everything have these really sharp, clean lines. And uh, just based on the images that I've seen so far, it looks really cool. But everyone says, oh, the downside is Unreal 5 is such a like graphics hog. It takes up so much memory. So you have to have like a better computer to run it. And if you're gonna
Yeah,
render
and
like a whole space, it's gonna take more processing
well, I
power.
would say um, in the short term, that's always if you're on the bleeding edge of what hardware can do. And so, like right now, I've got the new MacBook M1 chip, and it's not
Mhm.
like it's the lowest end of the new MacBook Pro M1s, and it like it's pretty good. Like it, but you can imagine if your applications are like need that much horsepower, you're gonna have a fraction, like a tiny fraction of, you have to really divide the crypto market by 100 if you think like you're going to be running some, but so you okay so then you're starting off from an extremely narrow niche, but then the long cycle of everything in tech is, we just bought a terabyte thumb drives from Samsung, and they were like it's like less than $20 or something, maybe
Really?
$15. Yeah, it was insane. And the
Wow.
only issue was that it didn't adapt to the new laptop, so I had to get like a male to female adapter. But like terabytes of storage are like dirt cheap now, and so the storage costs and then the processing costs are still on that relentless march down in cost. So you can still
Mhm.
see like, okay, uh, the 3 billion people in the world that have, so like 5-6 billion people have smartphones, and 3 billion of them, sorry, 5-6 billion people in the world have mobile phones, and of those three, maybe like 60% plus have smartphones. And that's a leap in computing power relative to what they had several years ago. And you can imagine, like, okay, in the next 10 years, everybody who has a mobile phone, which is the entire adult population, and plus most children probably, will also have pretty powerful um, smartphones, like with pretty powerful chips.
Yeah. Yeah. And my like I was talking to my friend yesterday about digital working spaces and how you would use the metaverse to work online rather than just being through a screen. And And she said, what's the difference? Like right now I can do Zoom and I can, and I said, but imagine you take your work and you go to a digital office in like that you see in a VR headset. And she said, well, aren't those expensive? And I said, now they are, but Facebook actually is selling the Oculus Quest like at a loss because they want to just get this Oculus out to people, and they're selling
I
it for
think
$300 each.
yeah, I think they're copying like Sony and Microsoft's when they would, I think the first half of all the boxes that they would sell, like I don't know how many they would sell PS3 and 4 and 5 or whatever, they would be selling them at a slight loss, like a negative 15% margin, because they would make it back up in the on the games.
Yeah.
Um, and so like yeah, it's interesting to see. I don't know. I think these things are at least going to come in pairs. But I think what's really going to turn it to the next level is I think everybody's waiting for Apple's VR release.
Mhm.
Because to me, that will be, they just, I'd always want to bet on the consumer hardware experience I would always bet on Apple at this stage unless someone else comes along.
To me, the big advantage of the metaverse is digital learning and how you can take a virtual space. Like in my mind, I was like, okay, say I'm a kid in the Philippines or in Indonesia, and I don't have access to a vehicle. Like, but I want to learn how to build car engines. I want to learn how to design cars, but I don't have access to an actual engine. If you had like a VR thing, then you could build the engine in a digital space and you could like learn how to put it together with uh presumably like Facebook's working on this haptic glove that lets you like feel and stuff. Like it has these little sensors in it that like compress when you
Mhm.
touch stuff. So it's like giving you like an actual sensory experience inside of the VR thing. So you could have something like that where you're grabbing onto the pieces of the engine and putting them together, and you can feel how everything works, and it can have different
Yeah,
textures.
you
That would
know,
help so much learning.
I think SpaceX, Elon Musk had this video from like 8 years ago. It's on YouTube where took the original Oculus VR headsets and they adapted it with there was some kind of three-dimensional device you could put at the base of your laptop and it would like recognize your hands. And so you put on the
Oh,
VR and then you've got like the hand um, thing, and so you've got these like hands in the VR world, and I think they either use an off the shelf software or they built their own, like wrote their own software, and they use this to create 3D models of the rocket engines that they were, so like the Merlin engines
wow.
that they designed. They were literally, and he has this video of that's how they were designing from like right when Oculus first came out. So like three-dimensional, and he was explaining that you can uh, really speed up design for actual objects because you can get into them and you could pull it, like you go like that and you like can get really deep in there where you really couldn't in the real world. You'd have to get all janky and stuff and like have cameras to look at things, and it's just basically like Iron Man,
Yeah,
like
yeah.
where in Iron
Where
Man
he
he's talking to
pulls it
the AI.
apart.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
all that.
I
So
think that's like the big draw to me for people to be in these spaces is like you, you can learn basically anything because my girlfriend, she's lived in Syria and there they don't have any resources for the schools. She went to college for linguistics and there was no resources for them to learn anything. The only way that they had was by books and by the teacher telling them. Even in the
which is the
language
classic
classes,
way, which
they
was
didn't even
why.
have audio labs at all. So there
Oh,
was
you
no
mean to
way
like
for them.
learn
Mhm.
languages?
Yeah,
Yeah.
I think this could be like a huge breakthrough for people to really learn like technical stuff and like more engineering stuff. And so the people who are more minded that way, they wouldn't have to just learn by books. Like they could have
You
this
seen?
incredible benefit.
Did you see that that Scientology movie with L. Ron Hubbard's that the one that John Travolta acted in,
I think so.
where
I
like
forget
it's
what it's called.
Battlestar, it's like Battlestar something or
Battlestar
something.
Galactica. Or no, no,
Is
no,
it?
no.
No, no,
No,
that's
no.
the show.
Battle something. 20 something.
Yeah,
Yes.
and it's some like
Yes.
sci-fi thing where aliens come in, and one of the things is
Mhm.
like they're doing something like mine. They come to Earth to like mine gold or something. And anyways,
Yes.
like to like train. It's a classic like Pharaoh and the Jews story, honestly, because like that's basically the parable, which is like so like the aliens they need like the workers to like be like less dumb, and so they're like, okay, well let's just train some of the smart ones in our like learning machine, which is basically like an Oculus you stick on your face and it just like starts shooting. It's like some kind of hybrid between Oculus and the Neuralink thing, where it's just like
Yeah.
straight data download into your head, or just like the Matrix, where it's like, oh, I can. What does he say? Like, I know
I
kung
know
fu.
Kung Fu.
Yeah,
Yes.
it's like those I know kung fu. So it's we're not quite there yet, but it's definitely closing the gap, right? Like, and learning in VR is like a well in certain niches. I've been reading over the years that certain specific verticals are and have been using them a lot, and it does compress the learning times required. Um, so, like for example, quarterbacks uh, in the NFL, like they're using VR to like quickly like train their brain to identify coverages and things, because that's
Oh,
a big part of their game, which is like
yep.
visually identifying on the field from that perspective. What am I looking at? What are the defenses trying to do? So that's just all training your brain.
Yeah. I think that's amazing. And that's
Now the
really
question
exciting to me.
is, how does that how do NFTs, or um how does web3 like ownership in this space, how is that going to accelerate it or make it um you know yeah, in my view, like it's still not clear uh what NFTs and general Web3 ownership in the internet, what is that going to lead to? Like we generally know with historical microeconomics that when you give people property rights around whatever the thing is, you have a hyper explosion in productivity around that thing, because people are now incentivized to cultivate the thing, right? So that's why like societies that are collective, like communist farms, are super unproductive relative to like private farms with even with small plot ownership. That was a big change in China, where they like they allowed small plot farmers to like keep some of their harvest, and then the rest was like taken by the government, aka they just like started taxing. They like gave
Mhm.
private so like when you have private property rights around things, you have this explosion of productivity and innovation around it, because people are financially incentivized to directly invest their time and energy into something.
The way that I see that developing in my mind is everything that you're going to interact with in these digital spaces is basically going to be an NFT. Like the space itself that you enter into, the engine model that you build, the avatar that you're wearing, if you want to put like gloves on your hands, every little piece of that section is going to be NFTs. And it's going to be, there's probably going to be companies that make, oh, we have like this pre-pack that we made that if you want to learn this thing, you just buy our little section. But then there's going to be all these other third-party software things that people say, oh, hey, buy my NFT of these like glasses, or of this engine that I created, or this product that I created. And so every single thing in that space is going to be like an NFT. And so people are going to have multiple choices to choose from depending on what they want to learn and what they want to use. And it, the big thing that I'm excited about right now is all this cross chain stuff that people are trying to do, because they want to use more. interoperability between the chains. So I don't want to build something on Ethereum, but I want something that I build on Solana to work in Ethereum. And so that's kind of where people are going with NFTs, is they want them to be able to work on multiple networks instead of just one.
You, I'm sure you've been busy. You didn't hear the interview I did with Trevin from a couple days ago. I think it was from
I kind of
this
looked at
Sunday.
some of them.
Because the most recent one is, and I think I'm gonna need to really get even deeper and really just like dedicate some time um, to get even deeper on my understanding of this, which is he was explaining that NFTs are different in each chain, and
Mhm,
that there is a qualitative difference between an NFT in Ethereum, an NFT in Solana, and an NFT in Cardano, and
mhm.
etc. And the dark horse that's come on my radar in the last month has been Tezos, which Hollywood has been embracing, and I think Ubisoft, they announced that they wanted to put their games on Tezos, and then everybody on YouTube, when they like put the video on YouTube, it got like 99% like dislikes and only 1% likes, and it's like that is the classic innovator's dilemma, which is, can you cannibalize your existing business to get to the next generation of technology, which like the worst companies never make that transition. So like Palm Pilot, Nokia, Microsoft, like Microsoft could have theoretically, they tried to charge, they were like, we don't give out operating systems for free. We're going to charge $100. And Google was like, Android's free. And they had the developer ecosystem. So everybody had more trust to Google, and Google made up that, they captured something like $400 billion in value in terms of market cap value right off of like giving the software away for free. And so, and the first person who mentioned Tezos to me is the brother-in-law of my brother-in-law. Chris Canucciari is this documentarian, and he made the documentary on Netflix. I don't know if you've seen it. It's called Banking on Bitcoin. And it was like the first mainstream, it was an independent film, but I think it's like the first mainstream documentary about the crypto economy. And it was mostly about Bitcoin. And like he interviewed, all the main players. Back, he identified really early, like whatever, 10 years ago, and like I think Vitalik gave him a bunch of Ethereum that he like lost, and um,
No.
so that's the classic like early days in crypto stories where like people, at every step of the way, nobody understands where the value is, and like some things don't seem valuable at all. But so Tezos is like a dark horse chain that I'm still trying to understand, but the big implication is how, if NFTs are completely different on each chain and treated differently, we were still trying to understand like how do they actually transfer. You know what I mean? Like they have this
Mhm.
wormhole bridge, right? And it's like wrapping. It's like a wrapping, right?
Yeah.
But I still don't quite understand how that's going to work, and like understanding technically exactly what's going on is very important, because if you don't understand what exactly you're getting, then you don't have to be an engineer to understand the physics of a building. Do you know
Yeah.
what I mean? But
Yeah.
you don't you need to know enough to understand what you're getting. You don't need to know enough to be able to build it. So like that's kind of, if you're gonna buy something, that's the real issue here. That's why like even now there's a lot of like giant potholes in the NFT world. So one of my artists that I had mentioned earlier was the artist I really like is Lush Sucks, right? And he does these really cool spray paint murals on buildings, and he, I think, was and he like does internet memes and he puts them on buildings, and he kind of blew up a couple years ago, and it kind of flipped from like artists were always, for most of right before like crypto and NFTs came around, for basically almost all of history, besides a handful of the most famous artists, like everyone else was like begging for money, right? And now
Mhm.
it's like flip. You can see the wave coming where like all this value that was being accrued, being created by artists, they were never able to capture any of the value. Now all these tools are being built where they're going to be able to pull a lot more of that value that they create into their own pockets, and you can see that they're going to get really rich. Do you know what I mean? But one thing that's really interesting is like, I'm not talking like you need to become Taylor Swift to get rich. You could, if you were going from waiting tables and playing music on the side to now I'm getting the same income as a doctor, even though I'm like mostly unknown, but I have an audience that's thinly distributed around the world and they like my stuff. That's still really good. Like, no, but oh, sorry. Here's the main point. He just posted on his Instagram that like OpenSea uh, blocked his latest NFT minting because there was some kind of copyright issue. But he draws other, like he's satirically drawing other internet memes, but because he's drawing, there's some kind of IP thing, and it's not really, and that really highlights it's not really decentralized or censorship resistant at all. Because if
Mhm.
OpenSea can just say no, we're not going to support that, that's like a choke point. And if that marketplace doesn't support it, does that, and like if that entity like OpenSea goes away, does the NFT also go away too?
No, no, it will still be there. You have different marketplaces you can sell it on, because OpenSea is just one marketplace on Ethereum. Uh, it is like the biggest one, but there are others, and I think if they keep doing stuff like that, they're gonna lose their artists who want to mint on there, because you can mint directly on OpenSea, which is why people like it,
Mm-hmm.
because it makes the whole process easier, and it's already a big enough marketplace that people can just find it there. And more projects, more and more marketplaces are having their own way to mint NFTs, one-to-ones and even collections straight on the marketplace. So you don't have to build your own
The
website anymore.
marketplace and the minting, yeah, it's basically the same way where like before Facebook, everybody, if you wanted to have like a page for you had to like buy a web domain and then like load it up, and it was, and then eventually like Facebook's like, okay, here, just a standardized template that everybody can load their personal private content, and we'll make $1 trillion off of your private photos.
Yeah, yeah. The
It's so funny
difference
that
is,
like at the time I was like, for years I was like, and the media is a bunch of hypocrite liars, like they're just jealous that they can't make money the way Facebook's making money, and they're just haters. And now I'm thinking it's so absurd that someone else can make money off of my photos and I don't get a cut. Now I'm
mm,
like thinking, hey, that's so unfair. Like I should even get, I still want the penny that I'm due, you
yep,
know?
yep. And
So,
that's the exciting part to me about like NFT sizing your own stuff, especially as a musician, and um, and that kind of gets into the whole audio NFTs.
yeah, let's
And
talk about that. Let's move on and
okay,
we can come back if there's something. Explain to me what's going on with audio NFTs.
well, I've been getting ready to do this talk tomorrow, um, actually, to a bunch of producers about NFTs and audio NFTs specifically, and how musicians and producers can benefit from them. And there's a bunch of different ways that people are already using this space. There's this one producer called Illmind, and he's like a Grammy award winning producer, and he has an audience, obviously. So he didn't have to build his community from scratch because people know him, people respect his work. So
Mm-hmm.
what he is has done is he takes the beats and the samples that he makes for his songs, and he turns them into NFTs to individually sell. And the way the like intellectual property works with his project is he gives people the IP. Like he just says, you buy my NFT, you own this sample, you own this beat, and then you can make it into a song and you can either sell it like as it is, or you can turn it into a song and sell that. So that's like one way that he's
But
creating
so
revenue for
he's
himself.
only going to make money one time at the single point of sale, or did he write into the NFT code that he gets paid every time it's traded, or every time money, does he get like a cut of the money forever? Like you were
I
saying that
think
something like that is
so,
possible.
yeah. I think he has some setups like that, but others he just gives them for free. Like he has different tiers, I believe, of what he's doing. So some of them have royalties embedded, some of them don't.
And the
And
idea is if the NFT that you're selling to a buyer is going to have no royalties attached to it, it's like clean, then that's more likely going to be priced at the top of the market. Whereas if you're saying this second sample has a lifetime 1% royalty fee at every time it's bought and sold. So that would be like having property in a city that, you know, has a sales tax, a property
mhm,
sales tax on it, right?
mhm,
And so then so you're going to see a drop off in transactions, right? Because it's going to be less liquid, because then you have to pay out every time it's transacted. And then the third one would be if like we wrote royalty codes into it, where like every time it's played, Spotify gives us 1 cent, and 1/3 of 1 cent goes back to me, or whatever, right?
yeah,
Forever.
yeah,
So
yeah.
or it goes
Actually,
back to this wallet forever, or something like that.
yeah, that is something that Blau did, like 3 Lau or whatever the artist. He took, he said, okay, I'm selling the rights to the streaming revenue of one of my songs. So he
Okay.
took, he released a song and he released an NFT with it that gave people a certain percentage of the streaming rights, which, you know, I think is like it's a way to introduce people to the idea, but it's kind of like I don't like the idea because it's like, oh hey, here you go, pay like hundreds of dollars to get like several cents or something for this because it's like the
Oh,
Spotify streaming rights, you know.
well,
So
okay. So he's selling it not only for consumption but as an idea of investment, right? And
yeah.
so it's got
Mhm.
the thing is like this whole like Ponzi schemey feel to things, of or like ripping people off. It's only the thing is this is the problem with this debate. It's a ripoff if they don't make money, and it's a Ponzi
Mhm.
scheme if some people are left holding the bag, or it's
Mhm.
the steal of a lifetime if you make money.
Yeah.
And everybody is retroactively putting labels on things based on how they do, whether they make money or don't make money. So they're like, if I made
Mhm.
a speculative investment that I didn't understand anything about it, and I lost money, oh, they were a Ponzi scheme. They defrauded me. But if
Mhm.
if I made a, you know, tons of money, if like I have this now like weird looking ape JPEG that's now worth $1 million, I just won the lottery. And it's like, no, you have to take ownership of what you're spending your money on. And that's in my view, like uh, I would rather err on the side of like, let's not restrict, like let the people decide. And because eventually like the information about what's crappy and what's good, and who has a good reputation and who doesn't, and what models work and don't work, like that will start to filter out eventually, I
Yeah.
think.
Yeah. Like
uh
Snoop Dogg is releasing his NFT on Solana and it's 7 Solana each for
Dude,
his NFT.
if I was rolling in it, I would totally buy it. You know, I just made a Snoop Dogg um short video, because he's like did you see it yet?
No, no, I didn't see it.
It's so funny. I just woke up this morning, and you know, you're just checking, having your coffee, checking the news or whatever. And Snoop Dogg is like being Affleck and he like because he's announcing the Golden Globe nominees, and they gave him like a list of 100, and you know I don't blame him, but it's the funniest thing in the world because do you remember the Key and Peele substitute teacher skit?
Yes.
It's literally like that in real life. Like everybody knows Ben Affleck, and he's like Bean Affleck, and he's like, oh my bad, like, and then he says it correctly, and he keeps doing that over and over. He's like Denise, and then it's just like the D night. There's a
D
guy
nice.
who's D nice, and he messed up. Dennis Villanuvo. I don't even know how to pronounce it. Like that's a classic. Like you know, John Travolta. There was some artist that he messed her name up. He kept saying Les Miserables instead of Les
Oh,
Miserables or whatever, and then he also messed up her name. Some famous actress who's from she was a famous singer who did the Snow
oh
cartoon
yeah.
series.
What is her name? The lady who did the
Frozen,
songs,
yeah,
right?
yeah, the Frozen songs.
Ira, Ira something. Yeah.
Something like it's some yeah, it's a very famous female artist. Anyways, it was just so funny. So I made a clip of like interspersing the substitute teacher and Snoop Dogg, and he's like, I don't care what people say. For my generation, he is on the Mount Rushmore of musical artists. Like I grew
Mm-hmm.
up and his stuff is still sick. Like whatever, 30 years
Mm-hmm.
after whatever the 90s uh, Long Beach music that they you know he blew up. He was like world famous at like 19 years old. So he's
Yeah.
like he's still doing it. So I anyways yeah, so like I would love to buy Snoop Dogg's NFTs and like so of the older millennial generation, once we come into some money, I you know if you could have bought like the Beatles original albums, like they're gonna say, okay, we're gonna release 100, you know, 20 like in the 80s, like 20 years after the Beatles were like a major thing. If in the 80s they're like, we're releasing 100 golden albums, it's just for fun. It's not like you I bet you there'd be a crazy demand for that.
Yeah, yeah, and that's kind of why it makes sense because people are gonna buy his stuff no matter what. But the Solana market was just like, what? Because like stuff is not priced that high usually. Like the most you see something is 3 Solana, for the most part.
Was it like
So
six
it's
hundred bucks, right?
yeah.
So
So
wait, he
being
meant his
seven.
cheapest. I mean, yeah, that's true. What I what I would like to see is for them to do, you know, you want to actually. The problem is with most people, and this is the problem with IPOs, and this is the problem with all markets, is you need price discovery is the most important thing because people either feel like you've got all this like artificial weird behavior, and I'm not saying it's bad because we covered earlier that like you might want to give a percentage of the profits to these like basically as like bounties to people like you who are like promoting and investing in long-term hodlers of certain NFTs. So you might, as a way to induce someone like you to spend your free time to like to buy portals, right? You had to
Mhm.
really work hard to get some of these things, right? Or the Dragon Z NFT, some of those things. So there's a financial incentive that makes sense to like basically give uh, that wealth to someone to induce them to do some certain kind of behavior. But generally speaking, you just want to discover what is the market price of something without giving all the money to some guy who's flipping it, right?
Mhm.
So
Mhm.
like someone who's holding it for a minute and flipping it, that doesn't make any sense to give them the money. Either give the money
Yeah.
directly to the artist, or you know that's the only person who should get that money is the artist, in my opinion. So like
Mhm.
maybe I think we're probably due for some, you know, better price discoveries for some of these NFTs rather than at the time of minting.
Yeah, that's kind of
Maybe they
the
should do a
state of the
Bonfida.
market.
Maybe a
Oh yeah.
Bonfida auction would probably be the best. Like, and the funny thing is, it
Some
drives me
people do that.
crazy.
Some people do
Bonfida
the auction
auction?
style, or not
Where?
the bona fides, but like they have this thing called fair launch protocol, where it's basically like an auction, but it's a blind auction. So they say this is the range that we think you should bid, you should bid at, and then people bid, and then they distribute the NFTs based on like what people bid and stuff.
That would be
So
super interesting. So what I would like to see is like, let's say how many things is Snoop Dogg minting?
I
How
don't
many
know exactly.
NFTs? So
I'm
like,
not
let's say
sure.
he's minting 1,000, right?
Mhm.
And what would be interesting is if they did like a like Bonfida has that thing where it's a 3-day auction,
Mhm.
but anytime someone bids on it, the clock resets for 10 minutes.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
it would, you could really get people. And then if, let's say, Snoop Dogg is like, look, there's 1,000 of these. So some people might just blow their load on the first, like blow all their money on the first NFTs and start bidding it up. But then if you can see like what is available and what's coming, like you might be able, like there might be some strategies around that that makes it feel
that's
more fair.
yeah. There's a project that just did something like that actually called GenoPet, and I don't know all the specifics of the project, but they did the fair launch protocol thing where people bid, but then also the bid timer reset every time somebody bid. Like
That way
it
you
was
have
like,
time to,
yeah,
like in Bonfida, you need the time to first, you have to, the way it's set up is once your bid is in, the like smart contract or whatever has sent your Solana to the, or your FIDA to the thing, then you have to refund it and then rebid it. And you're pressing
mhm,
like okay, approve on your wallet like 5 times just to like rebid basically,
yeah,
or 6 times.
yeah.
So
They had like a 10-minute cooldown or something, and they it was only the window was only like 12 or 16 hours, maybe something, maybe a whole day or something. But there's also the on-chain data, so people who know how to read that data could see like, oh, these are the bids coming in and this is like the average bid. So like
mm.
this was the information that I saw in certain groups that I was in because people were sharing the data
Wait,
that's
so
like,
some
oh
people were reading the chain, the on-chain data, and then like verbally or like writing out in the discords what this means. They're interpreting it.
yeah, yeah,
We're so
they were
early in the
showing.
days because what happens is you're gonna have people automate tools that'll explain it to you. Like
Yep.
right now, there's a ENS domains Twitter bot that just like
Hmm.
tweets out like high bid names, you know.
Yeah, yeah.
So
Sales bots. We have sales
yeah,
bots too
yeah,
in
sales
NFTs.
bots and I mean there's versions of that like we were saying before that like you know uh originally the airlines were using their revenue management algorithms to like price their seats high at different like they constantly, so you'd sit in seat 1A, you're paying $100, person in seat 1B is paying 150, person in seat 1C is paying 65, just based on when they bought it and whatever like the variables were in their algorithms. And then eventually like uh, all these flying algorithms like Travelocity and Expedia and Google Flights and all these things. It was like a consumer algorithm to help us combat the revenue management algorithms from the airlines. And so eventually, it's like you're equally armed to battle each other to get like a fair price. And
Yeah.
so right now, what comes to my mind when you're describing this is that like there's some people with that are more skilled at reading the auctions, and there's a huge disadvantage for people who are unskilled. And it looks like there would be a market for people. Some people would pay a little bit of money to have a system, an automated system that would like level the playing field for them. Like you'd probably
Yep.
pay $2 a month for some bot that would just like get you at the same level as someone else.
Yeah. Yeah. There's browser extensions for uh, Chrome that connect to the marketplaces. So when an NFT drops and it hits the marketplace, if they have the rarity uploaded to like either the two big ones are how rare or moon rank, and they if they upload their attributes and the traits and the rarity percentages to those websites, there's a browser extension that allows you to see that in the marketplace. So
So
if
it's
you
already
are
happening. There's already algorithmic tools that are there to like give you a recommended or give you better information. on
So you
certain
can
NFTs.
what's called snipe the rares from the marketplace, and you can buy them because bots are just selling or people are just selling and they don't know the
Sorry,
rarity.
sorry. Can you repeat that? You cut off for a second. You can snipe the rares.
You can like snipe the rares, and basically it's where you, since you have this extension, you can see the rarity of each thing on the marketplace as it's being sold or as they're just being listed. So you can look through each one that's listed and you can find the more rare ones. And if you have the Solana, you can just buy it for way cheaper and you can sell it later if when the project has more value, or you can just hold it on the ride up and then sell the rares. And then if you want to stay in the project, when it goes down, you still have like one or two to keep.
Here's the interesting thing to me is like, just because like, so I'm dealing with I'm having a little bit of the insight with the tomato one that I got, the bromatos one,
Mhm.
right? And they have that computer generated rarity percentages and things that they show you. And to me, that's got a bit of the greater fool aspect to it, like which is like, I'm only selling this, only has value because it's rarer and other people think that it can be worth more.
For
Whereas,
that specific project, yeah.
yeah, but whereas to me, what does it matter if something's rare or not rare? This is just what I'm from this perspective, which is, what does it
Mhm.
matter if it's rare or not rare if um if the most of the value is whether or not I find it cool, right?
Mhm.
Like
Mhm.
whether I
And yeah,
like the look of it. You can
yeah,
have a ugly ass building that's a one of a one on your block that's super ugly and it's rare as hell. That doesn't mean that it's more valuable
yep,
to me.
yep.
So that's sometimes like, yeah, sometimes when I think about that from the ultimate driver of the value of some of this stuff, like I sometimes wonder if some of the off ramps, like the things that they're like saying, yeah, like take this road because it's more rare, this is the thing you should focus on. Sometimes I wonder, like, is that really driving the value of this thing, or you know
Sometimes a project, like they have rarities and they have things, but sometimes the most normal looking ones are called clean, and they say, oh, that looks clean AF. And it just because it doesn't have extra stuff, it just looks cool by
it's
itself.
the
And
most
so
slick, it's the
rarity
iPhone
wise,
of the NFTs.
yeah, or like rarity wise it's low, but because of the art style or whatever, people like it.
Yeah.
But some projects embed certain advantages to the more rare
Oh, like,
NFTs.
okay, where you can get what, like extra mating, like in the thing that you, the bananas one.
So this one project that I invested in, they released an NFT drop to help fund their DeFi protocol. And they are building this whole like DeFi platform. And the rarities of the NFTs give you more percentage of the like initial token drops
Oh,
that they
oh,
give
so
you.
you're, oh, that is, I mean, that is, you're like reading deep into the fine print of what's going
Mhm.
on. So you're like, I'm going to get this specific NFT because this NFT is like a stock certificate to this
Yeah.
IPO, and I get extra allocation because I've got this specific uh, trait.
Yes. Yeah.
That's, I
That's what
mean,
they're doing.
that's such an interesting, it's such an interesting like merging of
Hmm.
uh finance and art or gamification. I don't know what I mean. It's just like a new thing. It's like, this is
Yeah.
something new that I'm trying to figure out, like, because everything, nothing is ever really new. Everything is just like uh uh a new twist on an ancient practice or something, like there was a,
Composability. Yeah.
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 And so like, I'm always wondering, I'm like, where in history, my big advantage is I'm a big reader in history and I travel and stuff, and so like I'm always seeing like new companies that are coming up, and I'm like, that looks like this old, like there was this company, TransferWise, that I use. You use it too, right?
Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah.
and they basically came up with the Halwala system, which was like not actually having to transfer it. They would just like, so they would just figure out a way to like transfer within the countries, like match the trades. So you wouldn't actually have to transfer the money across borders. And so they could reduce fees that way and stuff. And so there was things like that all over the place. That's how they get their low fees. They're not like actually wiring money across. So they only have to wire a little bit of money, and so they can lower the fees. And so there's always like, and so part of the thing in crypto land is all these pump and dump schemes and all these things. Like all that stuff has been done 1,000 times before in the stock market. So like, and other confidence schemes and other scams and snake oil salesmen and all that stuff. So like, and we're seeing in Web3, every single trick from before is coming back, roaring back with a vengeance on a new generation of like, millennials and zillennials and Gen Z were all like a bunch of dodo birds, like for the first time confronting human predators and like not understanding like what you're looking at is actually, no, this guy's going to come and eat you. Like
Yeah.
this is not an actual a fair commercial exchange. Okay, let's go back to audio NFTs. So we got sidetracked. Tell me more. This is part of the blog. We're always
um
going off
so
tangents.
with this guy Illmind, he has like his samples, his beats, his songs, and those all are like different NFT drops. But then he also has this VIP access NFT pass that you become a part of this club, and you can get airdropped a token that he created for his own ecosystem. And you want the token because the token allows you to uh, do really special things. Like, if you have enough of it, you can do like a Zoom call with him where he'll help you make a song or brainstorm session,
It was like
or
some kind
he'll
of
give
combo
like,
between Disney Bucks and like Cameo, because
yeah, yeah,
you can actually reach out, but he's like digitizing, like this ticket gets you front row seats, this ticket gets you backstage pass, and so he's digitizing an NFT form all these perks that people want from musicians and artists.
yeah. And you can do like a meetup, or he'll help you write a song, or just certain things, and they'll probably add more functionality to it later. And then Avenged Sevenfold is this metal band, and they released an NFT drop, and they kind of doing something similar where you get discounted merchandise, you get VIP access passes to their concerts, like some of them for life, like depending on the rarity. They kind of tiered the rarity based on the benefits that you get. So the incentive is there to have like, the really big fans are going to want the more rare ones. So those are going to raise in value because of that.
That's really
And
cool.
it's
I mean, it kind of makes sense because so much of um, our lives are, and I mean, and this is part of the whole metaverse thing, but so much of our lives are spent in digital domains anyways now. Like we're in physical environments all our whole lives, but so much of our brain attention and what we're perceiving is actually coming at us in digital form. And it makes sense to some degree that if people value beauty and art and images in the real world, right? Um, people are gonna want to have, like, why do people spend? You could have a extra money on a more beautiful house, or more beautiful clothes, or more beautiful people, right? Or whatever. They're spending so much money to go like tour all these beautiful towns in Europe because of our ugly dystopian parking lot filled hellholes that we call whatever. I don't know if American cities are the right word to describe the way we live in the US, but city is not the quite an appropriate word. It's so funny, whenever I would drive through Baltimore, I would see these, like, 10,000 of these abandoned late 19th century brick row homes and things, and it looked like a neutron bomb had gone off and like killed all the humans, and it was just like this like ruins of uh, of a city. But
Mhm.
I found that if it was populated with people and it was safe to walk around in, I find that city more beautiful than a
Mhm.
suburban thing, like some giant open air Walmart parking lot. But so like even without the metaverse, digital property rights and all the behaviors around um, the behaviors around um, exclusivity or community building and stuff, like they have that whole Fish the band, they call them, and I forgot the people
Yeah.
who like follow them around, and then there's like
Yep.
Grateful Dead and they have dead heads.
Yeah.
And a lot of times a lot of these things are just like people in like, they're like recreating religion. Like religion
Mhm.
is like partly spiritual and like partly community. Like it's partly between about you and God, and then it's partly about like I'm trying to connect with my neighbors on a human
Yep.
level outside of commerce. And
Yeah.
so like we want to like jointly aim to, we want to look at something together and experience it together and share it together. And so uh human beings are so religious in their behaviors, and whether the biggest uh, competition in my view to like Christianity and Islam is like Disney World. Because I'm like, I see people. I was looking at like Mastercard issues this every year, like all the places that have the most swipes and like tourists and stuff. And
Mm.
so they don't put this on there, but like it's like Bali is in the top, is like number 18, and like Antalya is in the top 20. Istanbul is right up at the top, and like Bangkok and Paris and London. It's where all the tourists go, right? And it's really actually overvalued in Asia, because like in the mind you're always like Euro or American centric, and but like most of the people are actually in Asia. So you could actually, when you look at the numbers, you could see like, oh, where's actually most of the human activity happening. And yeah, so I feel like these NFTs and things are allowing people to kind of recreate community, and they're really tapping into this like uh, desperate demand for religious
Connection.
type yeah, human connect, yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
People are like, the word, like if you say to someone, oh yeah, you're just like inventing a new religion, and like you're like, no, 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 I'm not doing that. And they're like, oh well, do you like all sing the same songs, and do you have this like metaphysical view of things? And have you ever like gone to like Christian churches or whatever, like everybody's singing together, like
Yep.
that's so anyways, so
Yeah.
that ends my
And that's part
rant
of
of
the
music replacing religion, but go ahead.
I like that idea actually. As a musician, I like that idea.
That
But
you're really just a cult leader, and the only thing that makes you different than who is the guy, John Mormon or whoever, who created we're gonna like at some point this is gonna make the internet and I'm gonna be like banished, but like let's say, I'm not saying that like Mormons are cults, but let's say if, as long as you don't sleep with all of your adherents, aka your fans, I think you're fine. You're in the positive ledger of
yeah, I
cult
mean that's the
leader.
big draw to community project or to NFT projects is the community. And that's something that they always say when people are talking up a project. They're like, oh, the community is so good. And like then you get into the definition of what makes a good community. Like, are people nice? Okay, people are nice, but do they actually like have useful information, or do they help you like feel like you are creating an actual connection, which is something that I think artists who have fans, they have this opportunity and this advantage in that space, because they already built communities, or they you have to build a community to who like your music.
It's so
So if
interesting
you
because
have
it's,
that
go ahead.
community, if you have that community, then you can already have one major aspect of the NFT creation, which is like
Well,
you already have the audience.
it's chicken or egg. It's like, well, are you building the community to sell your NFTs, or are the NFTs driving this, like, they're kind of like self like reinforcing cycles. But
Mhm.
it's so interesting when you think about to just go on a bit of a community tangent, which is you think about like the fact that we need to work out, right? And it's not hard
Mhm.
to work out. All you know, you can just in your apartment right now just do 1,000 burpees, just jumping up and down and jumping jacks and doing air squats. You could do probably the world's best workout just in your room and be like shredded, except for the fact that like nobody does that. Like everybody goes to the gym and there's these multi-billion-dollar industries of like we're constantly going to the gym. Like why? It's I don't know. I like to work out around other people. They have better equipment, but like I could get the equipment. I just want to work out with other people, right?
Mhm.
I get the juice, the motivation to like pump iron when I'm with other people doing it. And that I bet you there are every single like almost there's so many dimensions of human behavior that are probably going to be community driven, and NFTs are going to penetrate every single one of those. So
Yes.
right now we're in
Yes.
music, right? And it's the most obvious thing because music is such an emotional experience. There's no quote unquote um, um, commercial, like what's the word? We're not doing it for for overt commercial reasons. Like I'm
Mhm.
not listening to Michael Jackson because I'm engaging in commerce with with Michael Jackson, right? But I'm doing it because I like it. But if you think about it, like the essence of, you know, like Pavlov, right? You remember from
Mhm.
your intro classes and whatever in
Pavlov's
bio?
conditioning.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that is a musical conditioning, right? He's ringing a bell, feeding the dogs, ringing the bell, feeding the dogs. Keep doing that over and over, and then he's measuring the saliva production of the dogs, and like he got it so where he's ringing the bell and he could get them to salivate just from the sound, not from anything else. So um, music has always there's literally like physiological reactions we're having that we're not aware of around music. Like
Yeah.
our bodies are changing, are doing things, and so it's quite interesting in these early stages of NFT building what um, you know what artists are going to innovate and like stumble upon, and which ones, you know, who's going to like bring their old techniques into the new domain, and like it's just the same thing and they're just cutting out middlemen. Like so Snoop Dogg has already made it big. He made it big for 30 years already, right? And he's been on MTV and all this stuff, but now it looks like okay, he's minting and he's going quote unquote hard with like whatever, like 6 Solana NFTs, which is still not a lot. Like what I mean, how much is that? Like $1,200?
Yeah. Seven Solana. Yeah. So right now, yeah, probably 1,200
Dude, if you
something.
want to get Snoop Dogg to like give you a message on Cameo, I think it's like thousands of dollars. So like it's still like so I mean I wonder how much the front row of like any random Snoop Dogg concert, how much revenue he would be generating. Probably
Yeah. Several thousand at least.
several
Yeah.
thousand, right? Just from a
Mhm.
random concert, a one-off, right? That so these are, you know, in you might actually think that maybe Snoop Dogg's NFTs are wildly underpriced for what, it, you know, depending on how many generations of people still value his music longer term. Like Michael Jackson's estate is minting hundreds of millions, if not billions, uh, 50, 40 years after he made the initial song. Like
Mm.
Thriller is all over my Instagram reels.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
Instagram in the future, the next version of Instagram, or maybe Instagram itself, will have to pay and once they NFT that or whatever, like the next guy who makes Thriller, the next artist who makes some, you know, popular TikTok song.
Yeah. I think NFTs can be like revolutionary for artists, and it's really cool to see what people are doing. And my mind is I want to be the person who like bridges this gap and shows people this is the process, this is how you can do this, and then that's going to be like my business is going to artists and being like, let me run an NFT drop for you. So I know the market, I know how to like give the aspects to the project that people want, and then on top of selling that to the communities that already exist within the artist fan base and stuff.
I know you might get paid on our secret NFT project from my friend here in Bali. Let's see. I mean, that's a great way. It's less like straight up like commission based like performance, and the only way you're like it's a waste is if it's a waste of your time and it doesn't work. But that's still risk
Yeah.
reward, because sometimes they'll work. You know. So
I
sometimes
yeah.
you spend money marketing the Beatles, and sometimes you spend money marketing the Feetles or whoever were the crappy version of them that never nobody heard of.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And actually, some people have already reached out to me to help them with their NFT drops, and they have like sizable online audiences. So I'm kind of already starting down that path.
Now, what do you think will be the business model for the agency? Are you going to take a commission?
I think it'll probably depend on my involvement within the
Yeah,
project.
that's the
Like,
biggest thing.
am I just a consultant or am I like a project lead or something, uh, and then what they want from me, like, do they want me to run this thing, or do they want me to like co-run it, or do they want me to just advise them?
And
So
the
that's
biggest thing
stuff
is
I
the
have to
time
figure out.
commitment, because
Yeah.
one of the things that I've been thinking about is if what with the other NFT project that has yet to be announced, but that we're thinking about, is one of the things that I was uh, considering is there's a labor cost around running the Discord. Like
Hmm.
there's a front loaded cost around running building the actual NFTs and promoting them and setting it up. But then once it's like out, then it's not really it's just like a one-off cost, right? Like a
Yes.
birthing cost, right? But
Yeah.
then the ongoing costs, so there's like fixed costs and then variable costs. And to me, the variable costs, like try to figure out like you know do how much do I need to run a Discord? And there might be things around NFT creation where the Discords take on a life of their own, and you don't have to run anything. And there might
Hmm.
be, but I think that's unlikely, because human beings are poorly behaved, and there's always like 95%. In my experience running Airbnbs, it was 98% of people are super normal and cool, and 1% of people are high maintenance and a pain in the ass, and another 1% of people are psychopaths. And those 1% psychopaths are like 95% of the cost, because you wouldn't need
Yeah.
to lock your doors, you wouldn't need to have security, you wouldn't need to have police. Like these effing psychopaths are like all the costs around it, because like I have to monitor and wait for one of those people and identify them and then like exclude them from commerce or services. But it's all of that cost associated with that. These bad apples and these weird bad behaved people in a Discord are kind of the issue. You can already tell when, just to sign in, you have to like get bots to like make you have to, like, a lot of these Discords now are like, they want your private phone number. I'm like, excuse me, no. Like, I'm not giving you my private phone number. I don't give a shit what your Discord, what's going on in there.
Or
So
you have like a verified email. A lot of the servers get around that by having what's called moderators, where they pay people to moderate the chat rooms. So, like, if usually it's people in different time zones. So, if I'm running a project in the US, but there are people who are using it 24/7, like, I want to go to sleep, but I want people to be able to monitor and moderate the chat. So they pay somebody like across the world to be a moderator to like help mitigate that stuff
like
and like
virtual
ban
assistant
people.
admin. Yeah, exactly. And so that's
Yeah.
what I was thinking is, if the NFT project that we were working on, I'm like, okay, well, I have to account for the labor costs that I have to pay for to monitor a Discord, and that needs to be uh, factored in terms of the profitability and how much risk is associated with it. So it's
Mhm.
it's that brings me to a slightly other point, which is there are still Web 2 choke points around Web 3 products at this point. Like, I don't know if you saw in my
Discord and
Discord that
Twitter being the biggest deal to me.
Discord and Twitter are the biggest community choke points. I think we're getting close to, like, with Bonfida, like the texting app that they just created, and some of
Mhm.
that stuff. Although I don't know how, if the price of Solana goes up a lot, like if it's going to cost me 1 cent a text or whatever, we're back to the like early 2000s where all the carriers, like you wouldn't text as freely. If it starts to add up. You know what I mean?
Yep.
Or there might be some way where you auto refund all the people in your contact list, and so it's a break even, and so it doesn't actually cost you. And then really, the idea of some, like I have my US SIM, like I have eSIMs and stuff, so I still get my US phone number, voicemails and calls and stuff. All my stuff is on silent, so I never see it. It just like fills up my notifications when I'm checking my phone, and I'm
Mhm.
like so shocked at how much um, it's this sounds weird, but it's shocking to me at this point in 2021 that some stranger is able to just straight up call my number and try to take some of my time. Like I wouldn't answer a phone call that's like I don't know who it is. Do you know what I mean? Like
Yep.
uh and it's just like spamming my phone basically,
Yep.
and it reminds me of like the post office box. Like people, every time I go back to America, I like have to, like, getting the mail is a chore that I haven't done for years when I'm outside the country, but when I'm inside America, it's like, oh, so I need to just like, I'm like a garbage processing worker where people are allowed to mail me garbage, and I have to now spend my free time to like sort through their garbage and send it to like the recycling. So like Bonfida and Web3 are going to dramatically reduce spam, because if you want to send me a message and you're not on my contact list, okay, it's going to cost you $10, right?
Yeah.
And so you really want to, and then if I, and then whatever, you can set it so that once someone clears your threshold, you can always just send them back the money or something. But I suspect there's going to be some kind of aspect to Web3 where it kind of helps clear out the spamming issue, right? But with the Web2 to Web3 choke points, you see a lot of these chains are going down because of like Amazon Web Services died. And for like a couple, like, the Amazon Web Services East Coast like went offline this past week, and like a bunch of like
Mm.
chains had a bunch of issues. They weren't functioning. Um, in the NFT communities, Twitter and Discord could go offline, or Discord could block you somehow or kill your server. So there's going to need to be, in my opinion, for these things to really take it to the next level, everything needs to be completely Web3 based,
Yeah.
eventually, in my opinion.
Hmm. Yeah.
Um,
I see that too. That's kind of the challenge that we're in, and all of the ways that you find out about these things are through web to applications and stuff. Mm.
Yeah, dude. If you see Twitter, as soon as Jack Dorsey left, Twitter is literally banning all the government corruption handles. Like, there's the Pelosi trader one that's literally just, she has to do public disclosures about what she trades, her and her husband trade, and that's all that bot is doing. That account is doing is just publishing what she trades. These are public government disclosures that she's forced to do, and they block that, right? So
Wow.
like it's like you're telling me that in China, tennis star claims she got raped by someone in the Politburo. She disappears from online, right? She just like disappears.
Mhm.
We assume she's being under house arrest or being tortured or something. Whereas in America, some bot is just reprinting government disclosed information, and someone somehow decides to like turn off their their publication. They're just retweeting. And so obviously someone from the government, I'm not like conspiracy theorist, but it sounds like, okay, this guy's either sympathetic to Pelosi, or Pelosi strip just called him and like, okay, you're the new CEO, turn off this thing that's highlighting my corruption, otherwise I'm gonna like call you guys in for more harassment or whatever, right?
Yeah.
So it's definitely a choke point, and that's why governments are um, it's kind of funny. Governments have been focused relentlessly for the last several years, especially since Trump, at like trying to like uh, uh, reestablish control over information using Facebook, Facebook and Twitter and all these things. And
Yeah.
meanwhile, Web3 is like, all right, focus on those guys because we're building this other thing, and you ain't going to be able to do anything about it. So
Yeah, there's definitely a lot of room for innovation, and that's pretty sad about the whole Twitter thing. Well, I wanted to talk about like the innovation that I saw. And the thing that was really notable was uh, there's this project that just came out and it's called Stock Tylers, and someone took a bunch of pictures of this guy like dressed up in different outfits, and they did 2,222 NFTs, and it's all different pictures and different outfits and
Of
stuff
this guy, he's like a
of this
model.
guy. And no, I mean, he's just like a kind of normal looking dude. You know, he's got like
Okay,
unique
like a
features.
stock photo of a normal dude. It's a real guy.
Yeah, yeah, it's a real guy, and it's like
Okay.
it's so what's the word? It's so cognizant of that T space. Like they they have all these memes. It's very memeable. Like it's the most memeable thing ever. And
Oh, that's so
uh
funny.
it's really really unique, and I'm everyone that I saw who engaged with it was like, yes, something new. It's a picture of a dude, like literally you cannot get more doxed than that. Like it's a picture and
Yeah.
this guy actually exists. And like, and so
That's
like
awesome.
they have this thing like, if this turns into a rug, like we will find this kid, you know. Like so he's putting himself out there, and they I think it's amazing. And so it's just really cool to see like the artistic creative qualities that are coming out, and people are being less
That's like the
afraid of
new
showing
Kim
themselves.
Kardashian. Like that guy could be, like the new, there were people who were innovative who identified early on Snapchat and Instagram that like you can take, you can be a nobody or be maybe like a C-level celebrity. I think she was like organizing Paris Hilton's closet and was like a minor character on TLC, on like the most obscure channel on like a
Mhm.
cable channel. She was like the most obscure character in that, and she had a
Mm.
like tangential connection to fame, which was her dad was the lawyer of OJ Simpson in the
Yeah,
90s, right? Like,
yeah.
so you can make the argument, okay, she was kind of, she wasn't famous before her connection to Paris Hilton, and then she made. So I only use Kim Kardashian and the Kardashian family as a reference point because I think they were innovators and were masters of Web 2, right?
Yeah,
The
yeah.
Kim specifically, and then the whole family, and then like I remember back when on her ascent, the S curve ascent of that empire that she's built, she was her and her sisters would identify basketball players to like date, and then they would
Yeah.
like propose. Like I remember behind the scenes reading some blog talking about how like lawyers would come or like they would have like negotiations the same way like there's this whole like rumor that like Tom Cruise would like audition actresses who is going to be the next wife, and it ended up being Katie Holmes, like
Uh-huh.
because it was like all this
What?
like Hollywood constructed shit where like he's like a super hardcore weirdo and he needed like a wife, like what I mean. There's a whole
Uh,
movie about it and all this stuff. Okay, let's take rumor mill out of it. The stuff with the Kardashians was really interesting because they methodically use branding and direct to consumer branding and um, audience building, right? So for most people coming out of nowhere, now it's a well-known character, right, in the internet, the Kardashian family and Kim herself. Now, and then they also took it, to its zenith, where they literally own, like, have made billions by like literally owning the brands and creating brand new brands and distribution and all that. With Web3, a guy like this who's like creating an audience for himself out of nothing. Do you know
mhm.
what I mean? I'm not saying he's going to be the next, whatever Web3 Kim Kardashian, but there's going to be someone. There's going to be a handful of these people,
Yeah,
and they're
yeah,
nobodies today, but they're going to be somebody's tomorrow. And so that's going to
yeah.
be the most interesting thing. And they're going to have to do something different. They're not going to be doing it the way Instagram blew everybody up. It's going to happen in a different way.
That's what's, and yeah, that's like PFP projects are profile picture projects.
Okay, yes,
So
let's get into
that's
that.
what
So
that means.
explain, what
That
is PFP? So this guy
so
is the first most prominent PFP.
he's the first human PFP, like profile picture project, like on NFTs that, and they took a bunch of pictures of him, and they just NFT the pictures. Like they made
So
the
he's
pictures into
stock
NFT.
footage. He created stock footage images like the way you would get on Getty's, where it's like, do you know what I mean?
Yeah, it's basically like in every picture he's facing like that like quarter turn off the
Uh-huh.
camera. And so
And
he's
he's
just in different outfits. Like some of them he doesn't have a shirt on, some of them he's wearing like he has green paint. Like they do all of the things that are popular in the crypto space. Like he has a zombie skin. Like uh he he has like a
Hey Kelly, are you there?
animated. I don't know if
Hi, sorry,
they
Kelly,
released the.
sorry, Kelly, you got disconnected. Can you restart from when you said he has a zombie skin? I think I
Oh
lost
yeah,
about 30 seconds.
network bandwidth is low.
Just
All
start again
righty.
from when you said he had a zombie skin.
So he has this zombie skin, like paint, green paint. He's wearing green paint, or he
What
has
is
like
that
blue
from?
paint.
From the frog Pepe thing?
Yeah, different things like that, or like different projects have certain traits that you see in a lot of them, like zombie skin, cosmic skin. Like maybe there might be some like Dragon Ball Z like reference in the pictures. And so they're just like they're taking all these different things that are popular in the space already and they turned them into an actual picture instead of just a drawing, and
That's so
all
so
the
he's
different
he's
attributes.
he's recreating memes with his with like kind of uh, what's it called? Like he's wearing clothes and things to recreate the memes. It's so interesting because um Lush Sucks does that, right?
Mm-hmm.
He merges memes together. Like he did I think the one that always comes to mind is something 50. It's like 50 Cent, but it's like 50 Cent and Mao, the famous Mao painting, and like a
Oh
famous
yeah.
image of 50, and he merges them and he merges their faces, and it looks like, and he makes like jokes and stuff, but it's referencing something we all kind of know, but he's making something new. And who was the artist who was the, you know, that famous Bruno Mars song? Um,
Which one?
it's the most famous Bruno Mars song. It's he's actually not the main singer. Mark Ronson,
Oh,
right? Yeah, yeah. Mark
the
Ronson was a
Uptown Funk,
Uptown Funk,
that
but
one.
Mark
Yeah.
Ronson was he's like a producer on Amy Winehouse and stuff, and he became like a mainstream artist himself. But like
Mm-hmm.
he gave this talk where he was saying that, like, and I've mentioned this before, but he gave a talk where he talks about the way to make a hit. He gave a TED talk about how to make a hit song, and he was saying, and it was so funny. He was so like, you can tell how technically competent and brilliant the guy is, right? Whether you like his music or not, like he has a theory about what works, and then he executes against that theory, and it's worked. So like
Mm-hmm.
maybe he's right, maybe he's wrong, but it was very compelling. But he basically was saying that in his mind, he thinks the thing that really works with people is to slightly allude to people. You have to make people familiar to a, like you sample kind of, or you play things that they're already familiar with, and so like a percentage of the music, of the melody or whatever, is something that they already kind of know, and then you
Yep.
make something completely new into
Yep.
it. And that makes sense because we have genres of music, right? Like that's why all certain kinds of country songs have a certain set of instruments that they use. Like you're not, and then like what's that song that was Miley Cyrus's dad made with that
Oh,
cowboy song or whatever?
yeah. I don't remember, but I know which one you're
But
talking
it's
about.
like kind of a country song, and it's kind of
Mm-hmm.
like a rap song, you know? And you can see that which parts are coming from the country world and which parts are coming from the rap world and stuff. And so this guy, this PFP NFT, genre, he's bridging the meme world with the real world
Yeah. Yeah.
or something.
Yeah. They recreated these ideas that are popular in this space in picture form.
And we
And
find it funny,
it's so well designed.
and you find it entertaining because you understand the reference.
Yes. Yeah.
If you
Yeah.
didn't
So
understand
it's a
any
nod to
reference,
the culture.
and if you come at it completely unaware of the culture and the references, it doesn't make any sense to you. You're like,
Yeah.
what is
Yeah.
this? What am I
I
looking
I
at?
show I showed my girlfriend a picture and she was like, like, I don't, like, she didn't get it. She's like, but if the people who understand the culture, like they get
It's a meme of a
how
meme.
meta it is. Yeah, it's
Yeah.
very meta. Yeah, like cult
Yeah.
of space.
And
Uh,
it's so funny because then eventually you keep doing that over and over again and nobody remembers the original reference.
yeah,
You know,
yeah.
there's a song that Dua Lipa just came out with, and it's like dun, 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 dun. You know that song? I forgot what it's called. She just came out with it, and it has this beat that was like this hook that was very popular in the '90s. It's a
Mm.
White Town or White Cloud. Do you know what I'm talking about?
No, I don't know. I don't know that
I'll
song.
send it to you. But it's, and then I like Googled it, and it's actually an old song from the 20s or 30s that every 20 years some new artist just takes the same song and like rebeats it or like whatever,
Yep.
makes a new song out of it, but the sound is the same, and
Mm.
it works because it's like a classic song. And so you wonder, like, all the 90s rappers and stuff, like Puff Daddy was constantly remixing 1970s and 80s like songs
And
like that were
Jay-Z
from,
too.
yeah, Jay-Z,
Yeah,
yeah.
he had that like do your chains hang, or is that 50 Cent or something? Do your chains hang low, that one. Like it's the old nursery rhyme, but they turned it into like a hip hop song. So
Yes,
it's
that's right.
recognizable. I
So
think
it's
there's a lot
go
of
ahead.
advantages for people to do that in this new space, and it makes me sad that there's a lot of just copy projects. They're called derivatives. Like once something gets
Mm.
popular, everybody just makes a million copies of it
Yeah,
until the
I think
market is like,
the last episode you were showing me was you were showing me the main Dragon Z, and then you were showing me the derivative dragons that
mm-hmm.
still had value for some people because it was
Yep.
like, and see, it reminds me of the Dogecoin and then the Shiba Inu coins, which
Yep.
I thought there's no effing way. First of all, Dogecoins to me was so stupid. And then second of all, this is the thing that really has humbled me, and like from it's such a good thing that like it reminds me to just be humble and don't be an asshole about it, because so many things I find stupid end up, well, other people know it's stupid and think it's hilarious and are going to put some money behind hilarious stupid things, and you're like, okay, well, you know, Dumb and Dumber, the movie, made hundreds of millions of dollars, and people just
Yeah.
gave their money to it because it was hilarious and stupid. And so people spend a lot of money on hilarious dumb things. Life is full of like entertainment. And so Dogecoin to me was hilarious and stupid. And then when the Shiba Inu coins came out, I was like, there's no way this stupid thing is just like a derivative of the of Dogecoin is gonna be a thing, and it still has a giant market cap, and maybe it'll go away, right? But they
Shiba
literally made,
Inu, yeah, they did something different actually than Dogecoin. They took the idea of like the Shiba and the popularity behind that image, and they actually created an ecosystem with their coin. Like they have a DeFi protocol that you use Shiba Inu to swap into other cryptos that they
so it's
have
technically
associated
much
value
better,
to.
but it's a technically better coin,
Mm-hmm.
but which I agree with, but it is a uh their marketing was in the genre of the stupid Shiba Inu thing, and like
Yeah.
they airdropped into Vitalik's wallet all the Shiba Inu coin, and then he's talking about, he had a much more humble approach to it because I guess he's been in crypto his whole life, and so he wasn't mocking it. Like in my mind, I was like stupid, right? In my mind, I was thinking so dumb. And he's talking to me. He wrote an essay about like the dog coin. So he genreified, he used the term dog coins as like a genre of stupid dog coins, which
Hmm.
have billions of dollars in market cap, and like, are, the governments of Indonesia would love to have the Shiba Inu in their bank accounts if they could have all that market cap just sitting there in a slush fund. Like, that's real money, man. Like, it's like a lot of money.
Yeah.
It's like more money than a lot of these, like most nations sovereign wealth funds,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And so like they're like shaming the hell out of the IMF and the World Bank. Like, those guys don't have half the liquidity that the dog coins have. You know what I mean? And so that in and of itself is something that we're going to have to at some point address. But it is happening in the crypto world that like genres, memes of memes turn into schools and like whole ecosystems of a thing. And so it's a combo between, there's the whole thing that I kept seeing on the internet where they kept saying, well, the dollar's a meme. Like, why are they doing what, why doesn't they just write on a white piece of paper 1 USD? Why is there all this imagery around it? Why is there like, why are they putting the George Washington's face on it and Ben Franklin's, and like, what's with the imagery? The imagery is like the old world memes,
Mhm.
things to think about.
We definitely have to. I think all the time I'm learning how when I get into this space, I can't come into it with any kind of preconceived notions. I can't bring my old self to it. I almost have to be like a new, clean slate version of myself where I'm just absorbing as much energy and as much information and as much knowledge as I can from people, even if they're not the most reputable or they don't have the most experience in the space. They're still a part of the space and they're still influencing it. And so I need to constantly just be like, no judgment, no criticism, just like, because I don't know everything. And also, like, nobody knows everything. And sometimes stuff becomes popular that, like, from a market perspective, you're like, that's not going to work. And then it blows up, and you're like, well, I don't know anything, like, so I
Yeah.
always have to remind myself, like, be humble, just keep learning, and just keep just an open mind, as open of a mind as you can have.
And at some point, I suspect there's going to be a shakeout, and a lot of these things will go to zero or very little. But,
Mhm.
it's been a long time, and there's things like forked Bitcoin and like forked Ethereum, like Ethereum Classic and things that they didn't go with the mainstream, and like Ethereum, the main network, all upgraded, and then there's this like crappy version that never upgraded that still exists and still has significant market caps. And you're just
Yeah.
like, a lot of these things, there might be the heterogeneity of human civilization, that all the humans that exist on earth today, and that are represented on the internet, it perhaps that diversity of values and interests and quirkiness and all that weird stuff. I've traveled a lot, and there is this massive homogenization force that's happening because we're all communicating on the internet and copying each other, monkey see, monkey do, So there
Mhm.
is this homogenizing force that's happening, but the diversity and weirdness of human behavior is quite vast, and I've seen that
Mhm.
in real life off the internet. I'm in
Mhm.
Indonesia right now, and someone was just telling me, I'm not going to get into it, but there was, people in Borneo are doing weird things with orangutans. Let's just put it that way. And and I laughed so hard when I heard about that, and I was like, "What?" Like, I had this conversation with someone. She was like, "Okay, I'll just say it." She was so I'm having this conversation with this person, and they're like, "Oh, I'm from this one town in Borneo," and I was like, okay. And so she's like, yeah, there's a lot of tourists there. And then she's like, yeah, so we sometimes swim in the river. I'm like, oh, aren't you afraid of like swimming in a river with crocodiles? And she's like, well, yeah, well, it's fine that we swim in like the safe part of the river. There's not a lot of crocodiles there. And I was like, does anybody get eaten? She was like, yeah, sometimes the tourists, they'll swim where it says don't swim and they just get eaten by crocodiles. And I was like, oh, that sounds typical. Like that reaffirms my like my preconceived notions that like sometimes tourists will come to like Indonesia and not follow any of the rules or whatever. Whatever. Okay, fine. They're just as, hopefully, I guess they didn't deserve to be eaten by a crocodile, but and then she was like, yeah. And then, so I was like, oh, so they like tourists, they come to see the orangutans and stuff. So tell me about that. And she was like, yeah, but yeah, sometimes they get raped by the orangutans. And I was like, I was like, what? And so like she was telling me that the orangutans sometimes rape people. And I was like, I never heard of that. Like I'm like, and so I don't know. We just did a cursory iPhone like orangutan rapes in like Borneo or whatever, and it like came up with a bunch of websites like that it happened, and then like the first one was like Irish tourists viciously raped by orangutan, and I was like, I have to like research this, and it just made me laugh so hard. And I know it's a horrific thing, but like it just made me laugh so hard that I was like, there's so much stuff going on the planet Earth that like nobody knows about. We all have this like reference to like the Tijuana donkey show and all this stuff, and you're like, okay, well, I guess some people on planet Earth think it's worth their time and money to go watch this like freak show behavior. And so whatever, man, just to bring it back to crypto, I'm like, the weirdness of the internet is, before we weren't allowed to participate in all this variety of human behavior. And as it's moving online, there are tiny pockets of human behavior. And when you have human behavior, you are going to have money attached to it, right? So you're going to have cockfights in Thailand, and there's people making money on cockfights in Thailand, right? You're going to have, and the other thing besides the orangutan rape that she was telling me about, I was like, oh, that's insane. And I was like, I didn't know that was possible. I just assumed like, oh, like a dog is humping your leg or something, like whatever.
Yeah.
And then she's like, yeah, but she was like, there's also this, but sometimes it's like orangutan prostitution. And I was like, wait, what? Like, what do you mean? Like, and she's like, oh yeah, like people like pay to have sex with the orangutans. And she showed me this thing of like, some local police had freed this orangutan that was like the local prostitute. And I was like, what is going on? Like, and I was like, why would they do that? Why don't they just use human prostitutes? And she's like, oh, there's cheaper. And I was like, okay, there's so
the market for everything,
right? So when 10 years down the line we're like participating in the metaverse, and there's going to be all kinds of, you already have this freakish, maybe the internet's going to start hating on me, but like, people dressing as cartoons, and you've already have this like metaverse thing where people are having, did you see that like Facebook commercial where like they're in the metaverse or in like a portals type room or whatever, and some people are using their face avatars, and this PFP is an example of real face NFT, and then some people are using like different images,
avatars. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, so that's gonna be like a whole new world.
It's a new world, man. And in their mind it makes it real. Like God knows what people make real in their heads.